I'll call the General Purpose and Administration Committee meeting of May the 4th to order and ask for a moment of silence. Thank you, and I'll now call on our clerk. Mr. Clerk, would you give us the order of today's meeting, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Council. So as I do with all of our electronic meetings, if I could just start with roll call. Madam Mayor, obviously you're in attendance. Councillor Watton, are you in attendance today?
I am, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McDougall?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Guido?
Present.
And Councillor Ross?
Present.
Councillor Kieserbrink?
Present.
And Councillor Brown?
Present.
Thank you very much. Madam Mayor, I can confirm that we do have quorum for the meeting today. And I will announce also for the benefit of those listening, some of the staff members in our meeting today also. We have our Manager of IT, Mr. Adam DeBecke. We have our Director of Public Works, Parks and Recreation, Carol Coleman. I see Director of Finance and Treasurer, Diane Valentin. Director of Development Services, Kevin Heritage. Executive Assistant to the Mayor and CAO, Lisa Finn. Fire Chief, Mark Burney. CAO, Paula Law. And Legislative Services Associate, Sandra Fry. So just for the benefit of everyone, those members of staff are also in attendance during this meeting today. Like always, if you're not speaking, if you could please mute your mic while not talking. This will avoid any background noise that may occur where you are and will avoid any echo in the audio. If you have headphones available to you, please use them. If you'd like to please speak, this is for members of council and staff. If you'd like to speak, please post a message in the chat. The Mayor will be reading those messages and call upon you in order of your message. If you happen to leave your computer, please let the Mayor know so that quorum can continue to be met. That's specific to council members. And when moving or seconding a motion, if you could please announce your name at the time of moving or seconding, that would be appreciated. And voting will be conducted by the Mayor calling each councillor's name individually and asking for their vote. Once your name is called, please unmute your mic and say in favour or against. The Mayor will then announce the result of the vote. And this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the Township's YouTube channel. That concludes my opening statement, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. I'll now call on, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interests and the nature, please? Seeing none, we'll move along to announcements from council and staff. And I'm going to ask our CAO to make his announcements. He's going to give us an update on the verbal update on the COVID-19 situation. Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I have a number of updates for you today, so I'll work through them. And if you'd like to ask any questions along the way, of course, feel free to do so. Otherwise, Madam Mayor, we can take questions at the end. Firstly, in terms of the state of the emergency, as you know, the township declared an emergency on April 3rd, or rather the Mayor declared the emergency just over 4 weeks ago. That emergency remains in effect. The emergency control group continues to meet regularly. The number of meetings have been reduced at this time to 1 per week. I'm pleased to say that Chief Kelly LaRocca from the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation has joined the emergency control group as a regular participant. In terms of emergency orders, as you probably know, there are approximately 30 emergency orders that were enacted by the province. They were extended to May the 6th, which is this week. They include prohibiting public events and gatherings of more than 5 people, closure of places of non-essential businesses, and closure of outdoor recreation amenities. Those are the ones that I think are most applicable to us. We expect a further extension to this within the next day or two. The provincial declaration of emergency was last extended on April the 14th and was further extended another 28 days until May the 12th. We expect another extension to that emergency declaration as well. Last week, the province released a framework for reopening the province. And if you haven't already, I encourage you and residents to review that document. It can be found on the ontario.ca website under frameworks-reopening our province. And it lays out the performance criteria that need to be met in order to work through a 3-stage return to business process. Although we have not, effective today, the province has started to loosen some of the restrictions on non-essential businesses. I had an opportunity to look at the document today, the regulation itself, and I'll just give a little bit of a highlight with respect to what some of I think the businesses of interest might be. So effective today, garden centers and nurseries will be opening with curbside pickup and delivery only. Golf courses may now prepare their courses for the upcoming year, not to open to the public, but they can now get everything ready. And in the same perspective, our marina here and marinas in general are allowed to prepare for the recreational boating season by servicing boats, placing boats in the water, but not opening to the public yet. Also gives more clarity to essential construction projects and allows for more municipal projects to proceed than was previously prescribed. Just a brief overview for you with respect to COVID-19 and the Ontario provincial and locals scene. So the province today released its numbers. Some good news. Positive cases were dropped to 370. Where they were averaging in the 400s and up. And the other thing is to keep in mind is the health officials report that about 50% of that number, the 370, is attributed to long-term care. And the other 50% is attributed to spread within the community. There's about 18,000 cases reported in the province, with about 12,500 resolved, but unfortunately about 1,300 deaths. In the region, we're starting to see a leveling off of the average. Yesterday, the region numbers were not out just when I checked before the meeting for today, but yesterday the region saw 26 new cases, and I looked over the past 10 days, averaged about 27. Total cases, 1,046, with more than half resolved, 542. Unfortunately, there's been 123 deaths in the region. 106 of those were attributed to long-term care homes. In Scugog, we did have a clean slate until this morning. There's been reported that there is now 8 overall cases that have been reported for the township. 7 are resolved, and 1 case, the person has been hospitalized. The public health officials report that the disregard for physical distancing is the reason for the continued community spread. Just want to remind everyone, we need to do better in this regard. Maintain at least 6 feet distance from anyone you interact with. In terms of business of the corporation, I would like to report that COVID-19 occupied an extensive amount of senior management's time over the past 6+ weeks, But I'm pleased to say that we are now able to focus more on the business of the corporation. That's the preparing the reports, project management, and return to our regular council and committee meeting cycle. And we are maintaining our full suite of services to the public. Other than the recreational programs, events, camps that are closed by the provincial order, and as you know, our recreational culture staff have been redeployed to the park maintenance area, and that started last Monday on April the 27th. We have made a couple other redeployments, a part-time staffer in recreation to assist with communication, and a full-time staffer within the municipal office to assist with the committee coordination role due to extended sick leave of the staff that's usually responsible for those duties. And of course, all staff in public works and parks are working and while maintaining physical distance separation. And we've limited the number of people per vehicle, and have guidelines for them during their work in the field. Also, of course, our fire and emergency service is fully operational. The library has been very active with electronic participation of its members. And although the municipal office doors are closed, we are providing full services with staff working a combination of full-time in the building, some between home and office, and others directly from home. Some good news with respect to virtual council meetings, statutory public meetings, committee of adjustment, and such. I'd like to report as we are now, we have the virtual council meetings and committee meetings that are back in cycle. But additionally, we've started the virtual council advisory committee meetings. We had a successful virtual economic development advisory committee meeting on Friday, May 1st. There is a meeting scheduled for tomorrow, virtual meeting of the Heritage Advisory Committee. And we've had successful tests now of the Tourism Advisory Committee and the Housing Advisory Committee. And we're just now lining up dates for those meetings. And we are now in the process of setting up the Environmental Advisory Committee for May the 12th. Statutory public meetings and committee of adjustment. So our first virtual statutory public meeting under the Planning Act will be held on May the 11th, PCA, a week today. We've also scheduled 2 virtual committee of adjustment hearings, scheduled for May the 19th and May the 26th. 3 applications each will be heard for each session. And we are just in the midst of planning 2 virtual public information centers for the Union Avenue and Major Street reconstruction design. And I know that's a lot, Mayor, but finally, I would like to give just a brief update with respect to bylaw services in the midst of COVID-19. So overall, pleased to report that generally, bylaw service do report cooperation and compliance from the public with respect to the emergency orders issued by the province. They report approximately 40 COVID-19 complaints that have been received in the bylaw area. We are, though, still continuing to receive complaints about inadequate physical separation of employees and patrons, and too many people being allowed inside a Scugog business, with 4 complaints received by the township and 1 to DRPS. Our bylaw officers are working with DRPS to resolve this matter with the business management. On the weekend, our bylaw officer was on duty on the Saturday, and DRPS assisted in patrolling our waterfront park and the parking areas along Highway 7A. Education and persuasion is being utilized to make sure people avoid congregating in groups over 5, and those affected are directed to keep appropriate physical distancing. As I mentioned, physical distancing is the key to stopping this virus. On Sunday, recreation staff that were working the weekend reported that DRPS attended the waterfront park on several occasions. They said that approximately 10 to move people along that were congregating in the park. DRPS did ask our staff to apply caution tape to the park benches to stop people from gathering, and that tape was applied, and I'm told it had a positive effect. On several occasions throughout the weekend, DRPS moved groups of motorcyclists along that were congregating in the north parking lot, immediately behind the Tim Horton Wendy restaurant. We did receive also a request from the Wendy's restaurant on Highway 7A for assistance. They've asked to borrow some large barrel cones to limit access to the north parking lot. They are also very concerned about the congregation that's occurring. And we had, of course, a beautiful Sunday, and I can tell you, I took a walk down myself. Many motorcyclists in the lot. It is essentially important that our bylaw and DRPS not only be visible on the weekends, but also to interact with the public. We're trying to educate first concerning public health directives, and we're trying to congregations and promote physical distancing. Just finally, Madam Mayor, I'd like to thank DRPS, who have been of great assistance for helping us throughout the COVID-19 crisis. Our bylaw group are in regular contact with them, and they've been of much assistance. If this continues, where we have people disregarding the social distancing, Council may wish to consider passing a bylaw to enforce the physical distancing directive of the province. A bylaw does need to be passed in order to do that. However, there are some pros and cons to passing such a bylaw, and I think we'll be monitoring the situation over the next week or so, and may give some thought to this in the future if we continue to get non-compliance in certain areas. Without a bylaw passed, we do not have the ability to enforce, just educate and use persuasion to move people along. And I know that's a lot, Madam Mayor, but that's my report on COVID-19. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. It's all valuable information, and appreciate getting caught up, as I'm sure Council does. So I got a bit of a follow-up too on COVID, and believe it or not, today is the 100th day anniversary of Ontario's first case of COVID-19. And I'm sure you'll agree that it feels like it's been a lot longer than that, but much has changed in our daily lives, and the way we work has changed as well, and may never be the same again. We refer to it as the new normal. That may be with us for a long time. We've all had to make tough decisions and personal sacrifices. All these things are being done to fight a cruel and unforgiving virus. We're all incredibly proud of our doctors, nurses, and healthcare providers, and of course our fire, police, and EMS staff on the front lines, and all the frontline staff that enable us to access our essentials. So let's remember that there are also many dedicated municipal employees on the front lines as well, like those at the township and region who are maintaining essential services for our residents, such as bylaw officers, building inspectors, road and parks maintenance staff, waste management, and sewage and drinking water operations. These services we often take for granted, but they're very important essential services that are seamlessly being carried out by dedicated employees working behind the scenes. I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks to all municipal staff for their unyielding commitment during this crisis. And I also wanted to announce that on the last page of our agenda today, you'll see the announcements about, what do you call it? The proclamations. And May the 12th is the Day of Action on Litter. And it's interesting, Mr. CEO, that you mentioned the Environmental Advisory Committee is meeting on May the 12th. But on May the 12th, I suggest that those people who are taking their walks in their neighborhood at appropriate distances maybe take a bag with them and certainly gloves, protective equipment, and pick up some litter on the way. So thank you very much. And I think Councillor Watton, did you have some regional announcements on how the region is planning on moving forward on a recovery framework? Councillor Watton? Okay, I will just touch on it. I don't know if she's having technical difficulties. Perhaps you could email me or on the chat line, Councillor Watton. So the region has been making plans for recovery, and we met briefly last Tuesday with senior staff at the region, plus the mayors and CAOs, and they have 4 pillars of recovery. One is social and built and economic and municipal. So under social, there's health and safety, housing, mental health and well-being, and income support. And they'll be fast tracking a lot of the issues that are on their strategic plan in these areas. And under the built pillar, infrastructure, transit, development, and sustainability. And under the economic pillar, business recovery, investment, post-secondary, and innovation. And under the municipal pillar, fiscal impacts, return to work, service enhancements, and advocacy. And they've outlined some action plans on each of those pillars. So, Councillor Watton, are you there? You're muted. Okay, we'll move on to.
I'm here, but I was disconnected somehow, so
okay.
I missed whatever.
Well,
My internet went down, but I'm back, so.
Okay, well, our CIO gave a quite an extensive update on COVID in the municipality. Did you hear that? You're muted.
I did. And then I didn't. I heard you ask me to give a report, but then I've gone and it's flickering again. So I'm not sure how long you'll have me.
Okay, I just outlined the 4 pillars, and outlined that there are some there are action plans under each of those pillars. Is there anything else you'd like to say about the regional recovery framework?
Not really, other than I just know that everyone's working really hard in the especially like the emergency economic task force and so on. I think I touched on that last week at the council meeting, so I think there's not too much new to report for that. So thank you for asking, though.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements from council? I have Councillor Brown, Councillor Kiesebrink, and Councillor McDougall. Councillor Brown?
Okay, thank you. And through you, Madam Mayor, I had actually deleted it because the CAO had covered most of it. Just I got a concerned complaint from a resident who was driving by Palmer Park on Sunday and saw people that he presumed were not from around here congregating in the park, and then he watched 2 men try to remove one of the barricades in order to park their car in one of the parking lots down on the waterfront. So he got out of his truck, asked them what the heck they were doing, and then they just walked off. So I mean, it's pretty much apropos of what Paul's been saying anyway about social distancing and people playing fairly at a very difficult time for all of us. So that's all I wanted to mention, but I did want to get it out there.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Kiesebrink?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. July 3rd and 4th would have been our 42nd annual tractor and truck pull at the historic Blackstock Fairgrounds. It's always been a great kickoff to the summer. Unfortunately, this summer, this is canceled because of COVID-19 pandemic. So I just wanted to read a statement by Elizabeth Peter. She's the secretary of the Blackstock Agricultural Society. April 15th, she announced that unfortunately, because of COVID-19 concerns and Scugog Township's extension of the closure of facilities, that the 2020 edition of the Blackstock Tractor and Truck Pull will be canceled. The Blackstock Agricultural Society advised that for years, we've seen how our strong and resilient community has continued together. We're certain that we will make it through these strange times. They would like to ask everyone to continue to stay safe, healthy, and connected. We also want to express the value and appreciation of all the local sponsors, Spring Grove, Hydro Excavation, Resort Elevators, Hub International, Lake Scugog Lumber, Vaz Independence, Green Tractors. There's so many wonderful businesses. We want to encourage the community to continue to do everything they can to support local businesses. I just got a call a moment ago from Karen Barkey, who's the president of the Blackstock Agricultural Society. She advises that next week on Wednesday, they're going to have a Zoom meeting and determine whether they feel they can proceed with the Blackstock Fair. So we'll have to stay tuned for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And please let us know about the Blackstock Fair. Such a shame. Thank you very much, Councillor Kiesebrink. Councillor McDougall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just an announcement about shopping locally and the importance of shopping locally. I know the internet is a wonderful place right now for us all to shop and have things delivered directly to our homes, but we have many businesses who are still available for curbside pickup, whether it be one of the farm markets or Century Garden or the other greenhouses that are around, as well as our retailers downtown. So it's important for everybody to try and keep some of their dollars locally and support local retailers during these hard times. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall. And to that end, the BIA has a gift certificate program that they just announced the other day. And it's a great way to support our businesses now and reap the benefits later, because you can buy a gift certificate with 30% off. The BIA is making up the difference. Is there anything else you'd like to say about that, Councillor Brown, or did I cover it?
Well, I could go on about it, but that's the nuts and bolts. If you want to buy a $130 certificate, then you pay $100. The BIA will reimburse the merchants. But the great news for people who wish to shop in town, and why wouldn't you, is that they have an opportunity to get 30% on their $100. So they're looking at $130 worth of value, and they can use them. I don't think there's a date set to stop using them. But yeah, you go to the BIA website and the information's on there. So thanks for that.
Yes, it's great news. I know that I broke the bank buying gift certificates, so I'm going to be well stocked for Christmas presents and birthday presents for a while, I think. Okay, that's the. Are there any other announcements from council? If not, I have Chief Burney. Do you have an announcement?
I do, and thank you, Mayor Drew. To you, council, and to our audience, I have 4 announcements. Actually, the first one, and I'll try to be brief. The first one is today is International Firefighters Day. Although organized efforts to fight urban fires have been around for over 2,000 years, May 4th has been selected as the day to celebrate firefighters across the globe. And it began in 1999. And I'll give you a little bit more history in my annual report as to why it is May 4th. I will give you a hint, maybe. It has to do with St. Florian. Open air burning. Since May 1st, as you all know, open air burning has been permitted again in the township. And since May 1st, we have received 750 plus burning permit applications. And we did promise our community 3 business days to process them. And I can tell you that we are doing our best to keep that promise going. But I'd like to take the opportunity to remind the community that when burning, be mindful of the permit conditions, the weather, and of course their neighbors. This week, actually beginning yesterday, is Emergency Preparedness Week. Ironically, it's the week that we would traditionally encourage Canadians to take concrete actions to better prepare and protect themselves and their families during emergencies. And I hope the years of preparing is proving to be useful to our community as we go through this pandemic. And I'll add more to Emergency Preparedness Week in my annual report coming to you probably next month before we recess. And then lastly, I'd like to advise council that later this week, our 9 new recruits for the Port Perry Fire Station will begin serving the community, and I look forward to that. And then with that, we will probably start looking for a recruit class for the Caesarea Fire Station for later in the year. That's it for my announcements, Marjorie.
Oh, thank you very much, Chief. Certainly the firefighters had a busy weekend, and we're especially grateful that they were there to keep us safe.
Thank you. I
So
appreciate
thank
that.
you. Please pass that along to our firefighters. Any other announcements from staff? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. And I have 9.2 and pulled by Councillor Guido, and 9.2, sorry, that was 9.2.1, and 9.2.7 is pulled by Councillor Brown. Councillor Brown had another number of polls, but he has since received his answers to his questions just for clarification. So are there any other polls? Oh.
Hi, Madam Mayor. It's Councillor McDougall. I'd like to pull 9.2.6.
Okay. Yes. Any others?
No, that's all.
Okay, thank you. And I see on the chat line that Director Coleman has an announcement. Would you like to go ahead, Director Coleman?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Drew. Sorry, I missed it. My house phone was ringing and I was trying to turn it off before I made my other announcement, so you would get that in the background. I'd just like to say that further to what the CAO was talking about, that the changes to the essential business list that went into effect today, since they now allow for projects that support municipal infrastructure, that we will be going ahead with the Cartwright Field lighting upgrade. There was some discussion last week at the council meeting about it, and I'm happy to report that now with the change in the regulation, we can proceed with it. So we will be.
Okay. Thank you. That's really exciting news for the community and for all of Scugog. We've been asked for a confirmation of the polls. I have 9.2.1 polled by Councillor Guido, 9.2.6 polled by Councillor McDougall, and 9.2.7 polled by Councillor Brown. Are there any other polls? Okay, thank you. So may I have a motion, please, to accept the recommendations, pass the recommendations of the remainder?
I'll make that motion, Madam Mayor. Councillor McDougall.
I'll second it. Councillor Kiesebrink.
Thank you. All in favor? Councillor Watton? Oh, I think
In
she's
favor.
gone. Oh, okay.
No, I'm back. I had to go to my phone.
Okay.
In favor.
Councillor McDougall?
In favor.
Councillor Guido?
In favor.
Councillor Ross?
In favor.
Councillor Kiesebrink?
In favor.
And Councillor Brown?
In favor.
Thank you. We'll return to that's carried. 9.2.1, Councillor Guido, you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few questions, and I'll start off with the beginning of the report. One of the recommendations, or the second recommendation, is that that the Scugog charity golf tournament scheduled for September 24th be canceled. However, if I look at page 2 of 3 of the report, it says the last year's event was a success, therefore there's some extra funding. This will allow us to maintain a consistent fund for Scugog youth initiatives and provide important community assistance to youth organizations in 2021 should the 2020 event not go ahead. If our recommendation report is that we are canceling the tournament, and this leads me to believe that there's an opportunity that it may not be canceled, is this meaning that we may be looking to reschedule sometime in 2020 should the restrictions be lifted and we're able to host, or is there just some clarification needed?
Well, I think the recommendation is that it be canceled. If that passes, then it would be canceled. Of course, it has to go to be ratified by council. Am I not understanding your question?
I don't think you are.
I can provide clarification if you'd like, Madam Mayor.
Yes, please.
It's yes, CAO speaking. So that's a good question. So this is actually, as you know, Lisa Fitton has headed up the organization of the golf tournament for many years, and her thoughts were that the funds that were to be allocated this year to charity, that we take half of those funds and still allocate them this year and save the other half for next year. So in next year's, when we come to next year's event, we would still have some funds to allocate. So that's what she's trying to indicate in that last paragraph. The golf tournament would be canceled, but spend half the funds this year towards charities and save half for next year.
Okay, so what we raised last September is what we're spending half of this year and half of next year, according to the recommendation.
That's correct.
Further, Councillor Guido?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. That I think my question still, if the clerk is able to scroll down to the area, the report leads me to believe, if you scroll down just a little bit further, JP, that it's stated perfect. So right, should the 2020 event not go ahead, that last paragraph close to where your cursor is, that led me to believe that there was still a possibility that the event may go ahead.
Mr. CAO?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Only if council did not agree with the staff recommendation.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that clarity. I didn't read it that way, but thank you very much. My next question is, what was the decision behind changing the golf course location from Oak Ridges to Sunnybray?
Mr. CAO, do you have that?
And I think Ms. Fitton is on the line. If I don't get all the details correct on this, Lisa, please jump in. But I understand that the other golf course wasn't available, and then we started to look for an alternate location, and then trying to keep it local. This was the golf course that was chosen. Do you have anything you'd like to add, Lisa?
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor Guido. Yes, the other golf course no longer does public service.
Can you repeat that, Lisa? You were coming in and out.
Sorry. The former, the other golf course is no longer hosting public tournaments.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you. And if I may further, did we offer or did we reach out to all golf courses within Scugog to see if they would be willing to host, and Sunnybray was the best choice, or were we selecting solely Sunnybray?
Lisa?
There's not that many, through the mayor to Councillor Guido, there's not very many golf courses in Scugog that could host a tournament of our size.
Okay.
So Sunnybray was the alternative.
Okay. Thank you. And
go ahead.
And my last question is on page 2 of 3 under financial implications. Staff have reached out to Sunnybray to determine any applicable cancellation fees. Are we aware of what those fees would be if we are canceling the tournament?
Through the mayor to Councillor Guido, I haven't had a response at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
As soon as I do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lisa. The recommendations are there. Could I have a mover, please?
I'll move it, Madam Mayor. Wilma Watton.
Okay, thank you. Seconder?
Councillor Brown will second that.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, just had a comment, if I could, Councillor Kiesebrink.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you to Lisa for your report, and to the committee members, Lindsay, Kim, Nick, and Shelley for your work. On Friday, Ontario Premier Ford announced that golf courses and marinas can begin to gear up to open, but we still don't know how long it will take to legally open. I'm just wondering, Other provinces who already have golf courses open have new guidelines, like 1 person to a golf cart. Players can only arrive 15 minutes before tee off. There's reduced tee times, no touching flags, no rakes in the sand, things like that. Because all these restrictions are very unique, I think that it could be potentially quite difficult for the committee to understand and plan for a golf tournament without knowing what these new requirements and restrictions might be. On the other hand, I don't like the idea of completely canceling, and I know Sunnybury would appreciate the support, as would our youth, you know, big brothers, big sisters, and so on. I'm wondering if we could cancel the normal tournament, but maybe still have an announcement that on September 24th, we want to encourage as many from the public to self-register and do like a pop-up play. And then if we could do some sort of like a GoFundMe page on our website, or alternatively just give a listing of different youth initiatives on the golf page where people could make contributions of their own. And that way we could still forward some support and still get out and play, but maybe just not in a formal tournament kind of way, because I understand the challenges that it represents right now.
Is Lisa Fitton still on the line? You could pass it along to the committee for their consideration. But there was a number of other issues that brought forth this recommendation, and I think some of it had to do with we're under these times, and it's very difficult to get sponsorship for a tournament or for anything, because of our businesses are under such a lot of pressure right now. And the same applies for people actually playing golf and registering. They might be watching their dollars a little bit more closely, and we might not get the turnout that we usually do. The other thing is that part of the golf tournament is the dinner. And although we may have to have a golf tournament, there isn't the camaraderie that there is with the dinner, and those restrictions may still be in place. So is Lisa still? Yes, Lisa, is there anything you would like to say?
Through the Meredith Council, we will certainly look into different options. If there's a way we can definitely promote golf course and support our youth.
Okay, we can just take that as it's not a motion. It's not even direction. It was just, we ask you to just look at maybe some other alternatives. Okay.
If I could, Madam Mayor, I'm proposing to agree with the recommendations. I understand that it would be extremely difficult to approach businesses, many of whom are currently closed and are suffering daily financial losses. I do agree with the committee's recommendations that we just really can't proceed. And I'm not recommending a further motion, other than just wondering if we could still, if it's legally possible, just encourage people on the day that would have been the tournament day, encouraging people on their own to pop up and play and on their own to support. And if we could advertise some of the local youth skating clubs and camps and initiatives, or at least provide links so that if people on their own would like to go and contribute, that they could, and it would just be, you know, anonymous. It's just a thought, but I want to thank Lisa for the report, and thank you. I'm sure that this was extremely challenging.
Yeah, it was a very difficult decision, I'm sure. So to the motion, Councillor McDougall.
Pardon me, Madam Mayor. Point of order. I just have a question. Just
before I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Councillor Ross. Yeah, go ahead.
If I may, just I know it's difficult to hear Ms. Fitton right now, but just a question to see, have we reached out to the sponsors from the last 2 years to see what their reaction is? I know there's a big push right now to promote many different things that are going on, and I'm wondering if we've actually reached out to see if people are willing to sponsor this.
Lisa?
Through the mayor to Councillor Ross, no, we have not reached out at this time. We thought it might not be received well by the business community to actually make a request.
That's correct.
Unsure.
That's correct, Madam Mayor. I should add that in light of the economic downturn that we're experiencing, grants and subsidies that are being provided through the government, we're deferring tax penalties and interest, looking to make other concessions. Just really thought that it would not look right to be going to business at this very troubled time and asking for donations, even though the donations are for a very good cause. Just did not seem to be the right time to do that. And the purpose of the golf tournament, however nice it is to get together in golf, is to raise money for charity. And without that purpose, there's really not a good reason other than exercise to have the golf tournament.
Thank you, Mr. CEO and Ms. Fitton. Just a point is that there's a number of charities and food banks that need more help now than ever. I'm not planning it. Ms. Fitton is planning it, so I wouldn't want to step in on your toes. But is there a possibility that we delay this decision and reach out to those sponsors to see if they're even willing to do it? Because there's that charity thing, or is it just too much for staff right now?
I can, Madam Mayor, I would say that although that sounds like an interesting idea, I really don't think the timing is right to be asking businesses to contribute and to be formally making that request. Alternatively, also there is a considerable amount of work involved to even doing that when we don't expect we're going to have the best results. It's been a difficult decision, but this is discussed through the senior management team, not just Lisa in the golf group. They brought it, and we did kick around different options and different ideas, but at the end of the day, unfortunately, felt this was in the best interest of the township and the business community. We still will be able to give out charitable donations, and I think that's the positive part of this. So half of the funds we normally would give out, council can award this year, and we'll still have funds for next year. So we would suggest continuing as recommended. Thank you.
I just wanted to point out, and most of council may not be aware, that this is a totally staff initiative. It's not a council initiative. So they're just bringing it forward to you. That's the staff recommendation, and they do all the work, quite frankly. So, and right from the beginning, right to the very end. And I know that we certainly thank Lisa and your committee for all of the work that you do on this. And I know that you've considered this very, very carefully. And so I just wanted to point that out to the council. Are there any other questions or comments on this?
Madam Mayor, if I may just have one more. Do we know what the total that the township will be giving to charities this year, if it's split in half?
Lisa, can you give us what the committee's balance is at this point, and roughly?
Through the mayor to Councillor Ross, so we have just for other.
I didn't hear that. Did?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can now.
It will be just over 10,000 each year for this year and for 2021.
Did you say 10,000 each year?
That's correct.
Oh, that's very good. Thank you very much. Does that answer your question, Councillor Ross?
It does. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Watton, you have a question?
I do, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to, I have an echo. I wanted to clarify, sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback. I wanted to clarify that the donations or that go from the golf tournament, they're strictly for youth groups, right? So I think I heard someone mention the Feed the Need or the food bank and stuff like that. We don't contribute to that, if I'm correct, do we? It's just youth initiatives like the skating clubs and Big Brothers Big Sisters and things like that. Is that correct?
Through Mayor to Councillor Watton, yes, that is correct. It is to recognize youth groups in Scugog.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. I'll call the question now. Councillor McDougall?
In favor.
Councillor Guido?
In favor.
Councillor Ross?
In favor.
Councillor Kiesebrink?
In favor.
Councillor Brown?
In favor.
Thank you very much. Moving on to 9.2.6. Councillor McDougall, this is the capital project closing report. Please go ahead.
Yes,
Councillor
thank you.
McDougall? Okay.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just scrolling down to my question. I believe it's on page 31 in the summary. And it's a question, sorry, my computer here. It's in a summary. There it is. Thank you. It's on the other screen. There is an invasive species management program we had in place that the Scugog Environmental Committee was in charge of administering. There was $10,000 in the fund for invasive species management. That fund is being closed, I understand. I believe this is a question for Director Valentin and Carol Coleman. That fund is being closed. At what point in time did we make the decision to remove those funds from this program? For you, Madam Mayor.
Who would like to answer that? Would that be Director Valentin?
Sure, I can do that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Councillor McDougall. So as we look at our capital program, we do review annually, actually more than we review 3 times a year, and we identify projects that have been dormant. And administratively, to have these capital accounts that do not have any activity is administratively burdensome. So we review these monthly, and this particular capital program or capital account has not had any activity since it opened in 2018. Nothing happened in 2019, and with the situation currently with COVID, it doesn't appear that work will be able to be done in 2020. The idea was to have a summer student proceed with this project, and we don't believe that that this will move forward this time. So that's why we took the initiative to close it. The money will go back into the environmental solar reserve, and the project can be rebudgeted going forward.
Okay. Further, Councillor McDougall?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So that would require us making a budget request in the future for that money. Is that correct? Through you, Madam Mayor?
Yes, so we, through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we could go through. So for 2021, if that's something you'd like us to identify, we could look at that for inclusion.
Well, it's not,
as long as, assuming that there's a work plan in place for it.
Okay, Councillor McDougall?
Yeah, I guess that's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Watton, you had a question?
Yes, Madam Mayor, and further to Councillor McDougall's question, if it was initially for a summer student to do something, and we are being encouraged to employ summer students and be subsidized for summer students, would this not be a good time for that to occur? And if so, would those funds not come in handy for us? I know that invasive species is very prevalent, especially along, well, we had it all mapped out at one point when I was on the environmental committee. There's many places where it could be eradicated if possible. So I'm just curious about removing those funds.
Director Coleman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and to Councillor Watton. The original student that was working on it was hired through the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters. They had a special program for this type of thing. And that program was canceled by OFHA this year. So they are no longer providing students for that. We also tried in 2019 with a single student to try to eradicate, and on his own, he was not very successful with it. It was very challenging for one student to do. And there also was issues with him being able to use power tools, so he wasn't able to use any. So at this time, I don't think we have a plan. I don't think the environmental committee has a plan with how to go forward and spend those funds. So I agree with the decision of closing it for now, but we hope to get the environmental committee up and running again next week. And at which time, if they come up with a plan for 2021, we'll put something else in the capital budget for that.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McDougall, is your microphone still on?
Yes, sorry, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
That's okay. May I have a mover for this, please? This report.
Councillor Kiesebrink, I'll move it.
Okay, Councillor Kiesebrink. And seconder?
Councillor Ross, a second.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll ask who's in favor. Councillor Guido?
In favor.
Councillor Ross?
In favor.
Councillor Kiesebrink?
In favor.
Councillor Brown?
In favor.
Councillor Watton?
In favor.
And Councillor McDougall?
In favor.
Thank you, and that is carried. Moving on to 9.2.7. Councillor Brown, you pulled that. And this is the fireworks during the pandemic state of emergency.
Yes, thank you. And through you, Madam Mayor, and a question to the chief. It says page 35, items 2.3 and 2.4, staff will not license non-essential businesses to sell fireworks. So then we go and lay out the rules for the use of fireworks. So we are presuming that people are going to set off fireworks anyway, no matter whether we sell them or not, and that it is okay under the rules on page 36. Do I understand that correctly?
Chief?
Through you, Mayor Drew, to the councillor, yes, you are correct.
Do you want to expand on that, Chief?
Sure, of course. Yeah, so yes, we first of all, the restrictions to sell, are purely for businesses that are not deemed essential. And yes, we do presume that families will or may set off or display fireworks, consumer type fireworks in their backyard. And we hope that they apply the not only the rules of the fireworks manufacturers for safe handling of the fireworks, but also the rules that have been in the bylaw for some time. Actually, I believe it was 2005. So, and it's our intent to, along with Ms. Bowers, educate the public on the safe handling and display of fireworks, consumer fireworks, that is. Excuse me.
Okay, subsequent to that, if I may, and through you, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Chief, do you have an idea of which businesses, essential businesses in this township would be licensed to sell fireworks? You got an idea?
Yeah.
Chief?
Through you, Mayor Drew, to the councillor. I mean, I can identify a company or a business that has applied. If you'd like to know what that is, then, by all means, I can tell you. What I would suggest is the traditional businesses that you see open today, the Walmarts, the Canadian Tires, and frankly, the corner store, who have been deemed essential, all have an opportunity to apply for a license to sell fireworks, consumer fireworks.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is Canadian Tire, are they still just the auto parts and repair open? The rest of Canadian Tire is closed, is that correct?
Madam Mayor, I personally have made purchases for myself and my family, as well as for the fire department, through Canadian Tire online shopping. And unfortunately, it's you're shopping via the internet, and you can't put a hand on the product to examine exactly what you're buying until you have it in your hands through the curbside purchase process.
Of course. Okay, thank you. Councillor McDougall? Did you have a question on this?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. It just takes me a second to hit that mute button there. My follow-up question was going to be on that same vein was, so the essential businesses that are open today will be allowed to sell fireworks. We're just not allowing any ancillary use sales, such as out of the back of a truck type fireworks sales. Is that correct? Through to Mark?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the council. Yes, you are correct.
Okay, so they'll still be available around should somebody want. It's just a matter of discouraging the use of fireworks throughout the COVID pandemic. Is that fair to say?
Sure. Yes, that's fair to say.
Okay, very good. No, that's all my questions. Just one other question, Madam Mayor. Will we be able to go back and ask some questions on the original COVID report that CAO provided earlier?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, may I have a mover, please, for the motion on the fireworks?
I'll move it, Madam Mayor. Lance Brown.
Thank you. And seconded by?
Councillor McDougall, second.
Okay, thank you. And I'll call the question. Councillor Ross?
In favor?
Councillor Kiesebrink?
In favor?
Councillor Brown?
In favor?
Councillor Watton?
In favor.
Councillor McDougall?
In favor.
And Councillor Guido?
In favor.
Thank you very much. That is carried. Moving on, there's no correspondence. New business, perhaps you could ask your question, Councillor McDougall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just going back to the original report that CAO provided for us. The complaints that come in, if there is any complaints, what's the process that we would like people to follow? Is it contacting Bylaw first, or contact DRPS, contact DRPS through telephone or their website? Do we have a protocol that we would like them to follow if possible?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. The protocol is on the website, which directs them to the town website or DRPS. If I was to advise the public, DRPS, we would rather have respond to situations of large public gatherings. I think you can appreciate that our two bylaw officers are not really equipped to go into those gatherings, and if we were, we would have DRPS accompany them. There have been a couple situations where there are large groups, like on the weekend, that not comfortable with sending them on their own, and luckily DRPS was available and was able to assist and did most of it themselves, quite frankly. They've been of great assistance.
Anything further, Councillor McDougall?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. On that note, as the weather gets nicer and nicer, and we're probably going to see more people in Palmer Park on the weekends, is it my understanding that DRPS has the ability to respond and ticket and enforce the provincial bylaws? Is that correct?
Mr. CAO?
My understanding that they do and have been reluctant to do that. I do have just a few stats that I was able to get on that regard. They have had about 1,600 complaints filed from the public regarding the EMCPA. And out of that, they have only charged 12 charges to date. They are trying their best to use verbal persuasion and education, and then only after complete disregard have they laid charges. And the fines are quite steep. Under the EMCPA, you probably heard they're, I think don't quote me, 750, 1,000, in that range. They are looking at possibility of using other means to fine, maybe at a lower level. So I think the rate of the fine, the huge fine, is also, they're trying to use that only when very much warranted, and again, use persuasion, education the best we can. And we've been doing the same. It's only been a couple of cases where we've had flagrant disregard for the physical separation.
Further, Councillor McDougall?
No, I'm struggling because I know the park was very busy on the weekend, and I know for locals and local citizens and residents that there is many around who would like to get out paddling or maybe even fishing, even from the shore if our boat launch isn't open. But I'm just struggling with allowing those types of uses and a balance of trying to mitigate the numbers of people that will visit our park should it be opened up further. Anyway, that's just a comment, but I thank you for your time.
Well, people can fish from their own dock, but not from public piers or boat launches. They couldn't, according to the rules of the province, they can't fish from the parks either because then they're stationary. You're not supposed to be stationary. It's all right to stop and rest for a few minutes, but fishermen generally stand there for, people generally stand there for quite some time. It's not it would be a moving target otherwise. Certainly we want to keep our parks open for people to walk through. That's absolutely true. But people can use their boats. They can use canoes and paddle boards and all of that, provided that they keep social distancing. And if you've got a boatload of people, they all have to be from your family living at the same address. Right, Mr. CAO?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to add that hopefully that we'll see some change over the month of May. As I mentioned, the order that prohibits the use of our parks for recreational use does expire May the 6th. And although I see an extension, the COVID virus positive rates are stabilizing and starting to come down. So if we can all just do our best, encourage your neighbors, encourage our residents, keep your your physical distance. Let's get these numbers down so we can get back to the parks, get back to our lives. Maybe not like it was, but a little more normal than it's been. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from council? Seeing none, I want to thank you all for your diligence and your hard work during this stressful time over the last couple of months. And certainly want to thank again senior staff and all staff for working under these conditions, and certainly to senior staff for the hours and hours and hours of overtime that they have put in. So, and I would encourage, before we have our next meeting, I think it's just a planning meeting, and I think there's just one issue on there, but for our future meetings to make things run smoothly, please let us know beforehand. And thank you, Councillor Brown and Councillor Guido, for doing that. And there were no other polls, but or just one. Please let us know your polls, and also if you have questions. Staff is working from home. They're not working under the best of conditions right now. And if you could ask your questions so that they could have an answer ready, and then we could deal with the business on the time it's brought forward. So that would be great. So I really appreciate your cooperation on this. So thank you very much. And I'll call for a motion for adjournment. Councillor Guido?
Madam, we just
and a seconder?
The proclamations. Apologize for butting in there, Madam.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do the proclamations.
Yes, I'm sorry. The proclamations. Could I have a mover for the proclamations, please? And those proclamations are, for those that are listening, RNAO Durham Northumberland Chapter Nursing Week, May 11th to 17th. Day of Action on Litter, May 12th. National Access Awareness Week, May 31st to June 6th. And Walk for Dog Guides Month for the month of May. May I have a mover, please? May I have a mover, please?
Councillor Guido, I'll move it.
Guido, and seconder?
I'll second it.
Councillor Watton. All those in favor, Councillor Kiesebrink.
So moved.
Councillor Brown.
In favor.
Councillor Watton,
In favor.
Councillor McDougall,
In favor.
Councillor Guido,
In favor.
Councillor Ross.
In favor.
Thank you, and that's carried. Now I'll have a motion to adjourn by Councillor Guido, seconded by,
Councillor Kiesebrink.
thank you. All those in favor, Councillor Brown,
In favor.
Councillor Watton,
In favor.
Councillor McDougall,
In favor.
Councillor Guido,
In favor.
Councillor Ross,
In favor.
Councillor Kiesebrink.
In favor.
Thank you very much, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.